finally decided to kick back and have a little fun. Some things haven't exactly gone my way this year. I haven't exactly been able to convert my second channel, Theater of the Sun. There's a link down in the description box for you to check that out and subscribe. To do anything with gaming over there. But I figure, as a nice little introduction to everybody in the Cover Killer Nation, I would take someone's suggestion whenever we talked on the Facebook page about Most Wanted Top 10 list. One person said, top 10 favorite video games. So let's do that. So we're going to talk about my personal list of the top 10 video games that I've played throughout my lifetime. I'm going to give you some background first, but it'll be quick. The systems that I've had in my lifetime are the NES, SNES, Sega Genesis, Nintendo 64. I had a PlayStation 1 for a short period of time. I did some PC gaming. I had an Xbox 360, which turned into a paperweight very quickly, and I have Steam. So you figure there's a wealth of games for me to choose from, though a lot of these are going to seem really tried and true, but that's because they really are just some of the best games of all time, and I'm no different. A couple of honorable mentions that I would actually throw out to you guys, especially those of you in the Steam culture, would be Spelunky and Hotline Miami. And a game that nearly made it to the list that really is just fantastic. It was released this year. I just felt it was a little too soon to throw it on the list. And I'm going to eat my own words later on, whenever we actually make it to the list, is Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight's fantastic. It's a great old-fashioned platformer. That reminds me of the old 8 and 16-bit era games, which there's going to be a lot of those on this list, because that was my era of gaming. I grew up with that kind of stuff, and especially the Nintendo 64, and there's even a GameCube game on here. There's one thing you're going to notice that isn't on here. There's no Xbox games. But anyway, let's make it to the list. Number 10 is La-Mulana. La-Mulana is a puzzle strategy game, adventure game that is released on Steam. There was an old version of this available 1,001 years ago on an old system. It just was recently reported, and it's just fantastic. This is a really obtuse puzzle game. It's definitely not one for casual players. If this is something where you don't like to solve puzzles and use your brain, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for everybody. However, if you like a good challenge, if you like one where you're going to have to explore areas over and over again and try to figure out what exactly you just did, La-Mulana is a great game for you. It's available on Steam. They have a second one that is supposedly coming soon. I hope it's just as good as the first one, because the first one you can easily get sucked into for hours and hours and hours on end. The Voice of Dog has a great LP of this, where he actually even gets stuck and just kind of figures it out together along with some other people. I'll try to remember to leave a link to his channel in the description box below as well. Number 9 is Blast Corps. This is a game that was for the Nintendo 64, where you man a group of vehicles, and your task is to demolish buildings that are in front of a truck that has nuclear explosives on it. You are essentially preserving humanity by ensuring that this vehicle that has nuclear explosives on it, that's gone out of control, can't stop, the brakes have failed, does not end the world. And so it is up to you to stop this from happening by destroying everything in your path. This is kind of an underrated game. This is one that didn't get the kind of attention that I think it really could have. There's a lot of potential, not to mention this is just a really, really fun game. It's easy to pick up. It's easy to control. It's one that has a lot of different things that you can explore. And there are time trial options for a couple of missions that really increase the replayability. This is a nice gem to find if you have an old N64 and you're looking for something to dust it off with. This will actually, it's easy to pick up and it's easy to play, and it's one that you can quickly get hooked on and addicted to. Think of Super Mario 64 only without characters that you actually recognize on the box. Number 8, we have Doom, Heretic, and Hexen, and I mean the PC versions of all three, because the PC versions were vastly superior. The Doom series everybody knows, everybody loves, except for people that thought that, pixelated gore was horrible and was going to manipulate people into terrible individuals. I turned out alright, supposedly. But I specifically like to talk about Heretic and Hexen, because these games were not nearly as popular, but they were also made by ID Software, or id Software, and it's a little bit like the Doom element, only it's in a different atmosphere. It's more of an ancient atmosphere, as opposed to going to hell and you're fighting monsters that have really been ported over, and that really have come over and are threatening your land, and you have to essentially destroy them. Hexen is a sequel to Heretic. There was a Hexen 2, which was not nearly as good, but Hexen was a little bit more puzzle-oriented, whereas Heretic was more straight-up action, where you just tried to navigate yourself to the end of the level and destroy every monster in your path. With Hexen, you had to solve some complex puzzles in order to make it to the next area within the world, and overall, Hexen is a little harder to pick up because of that element, because some of the puzzles can be a little bit obtuse, and you do have to do some backtracking here and there. Heretic is definitely the one that I would strongly recommend. This one should be pretty easy for you to find online. Number 7 is Super Mario Bros. 3. I told you there's going to be some tried and true ditties on here, and this one is the first of many. What can I say about Mario Bros. 3? Whenever I was a kid, this was really the first game that you really were super hyped up about whenever you read about it in Nintendo Power, and whenever it came out, it smashed records. It was destroying just everything in its path. It was a true powerhouse, and this is still, to me, one of the most fun Mario games to pick up. I mean, Super Mario World, of course, has all the ROM hacking and everything, and it's a bigger world, but Super Mario Bros. 3 provided me with hours of entertainment whenever I was a kid, and it's a game that I even still pick up every so often to this day in an old NES, no lie, and just see if I can beat the whole thing in one sitting. And believe me, even if you're pretty damn good at the game, such as I claim to be, it still takes some time, and the latter stages actually are pretty damn evil for Bowser stages. If you think about what you had with the very first game, and he was absent in the second game until Mario All-Stars, the Bowser area, the Bowser world, World 8, was pretty sinister looking. You're basically in hell. And these were the hardest levels in the game, but once you get a little bit older, they seem a whole lot shorter than they actually are. Number 6, we have Star Fox 64. Now, the SNES game is a legend in its own right, but 64 is the one that I will always turn to. This is a game I can pick up any day of the week and just immediately find enjoyment with. Even though I've performed the missions hundreds of thousands of times, I can recite a lot of the dialogue just ad nauseum. It's ridiculous. You know, all of the different characters have their one trademark phrase. Everybody wants to kill Slippy Toad, and of course, you know, Peppy wants you to trust your instincts, and Falco's just a douchebag. And even to the characters that you only see every once in a while, such as Cat. This is just a terrific game. It was a great installment in the Star Fox regime. The second game in the series definitely proved to be just one of the most epic games that Star Fox was going to be able to really deliver. I've been waiting for a satisfactory sequel to that, and I've always been kind of let down by one or two elements. This is just a perfect game that came at the perfect time. And there's not much else that can be said about it. I mean, what's more rewarding than taking the hard path and defeating Andross and saving the Lilat system? Not much. Number 5 is a tie between Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3. Mega Man 3 is on this because it was my first Mega Man game, but Mega Man 2 is the game that everybody goes back to, the tried and true 100% classic. 8 Robot Masters, a couple Dr. Wily stages, and then you have to face the evil genius himself, Dr. Wily. And of course, this is the game where you just exploit the hell out of the Metal Blades because they were just overpowered as all fucking get out. But at the same time, it was also a great game that had fantastic music. The level design was very challenging, but at the same time fair, with the exception of the Quickman laser beams. But if you learn the pattern, it's actually not as hard as you think it is. It's just very, very tight. Very, very tight. You have to make sure that you play it perfectly, and that's something that's going to teach you a little bit of precision. It's going to hone in your gamer skills a little bit. Loved 3, though, because this was one that I played for hours and hours as a kid, because it was, like I said, the first one I had, and for a long time, the only one that I had. So I definitely got very good at this, and not to mention the pattern of how you go through the bosses and everything. The weakness order became second nature to me, and it was just a fun game to play, and there was expanded content even from 2, where you now had to face Robot Masters from the older games in the form of Doc Robot Masters, before you even made it to the Wily Fortress. The game would continue to expand with Mega Man 4, which is a pretty good game in its own right, but it didn't make the list, and then the series started to implode a little bit, and I think that was really because they were focusing more on what was coming for the SNES with the X series and things like that. But Mega Man's also encountered a nice little revitalization in the form of 9 and 10, and I think they're making an 11, but it's whatever. But at the same time, this is definitely a revitalization that has proven that we love a challenge, because these are some of the most challenging games that the series really has. Number 4 is Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem. This was a game that was on the GameCube that I just can't get enough of. In fact, it's one of the main reasons why one of my friends and I really hung out for a long period of time because she found out that I had this game, that I love this game, and we spent many a night playing through the game and getting as far as we could. We never actually got a chance to beat it together, so that's something we have to do before we die. But this is a very psychological horror game where you take control of a girl who has to kind of understand the mystery of why her uncle is no longer with her, or what's going on. He seems to have disappeared or died, and there's just a big mystery that goes around this, and you end up going into different locations throughout history due to reading different scrolls and tomes, and kind of gaining some powers and gaining some understanding of the darkness that surrounds you. And it's a fantastic platform, and it's one that actually introduces the sanity meter. Much like what Max Payne was able to do with Bullet Time, Eternal Darkness really did a big wonder with sanity, where if your sanity level got too low, you actually started to hallucinate things, and the game would actually change based around your hallucination meter. So you might walk from one room to another and find out that you're actually on the ceiling, and then you end up reverting back and realizing that you were just going crazy. Either that, or more famously enough, there is one that actually makes it look like the game has actually crashed or rebooted, and it makes it look like you have completely lost all of your data. I remember that happened to me for the first time many years ago, and I literally yelled at my television because I was so pissed because I thought I just lost everything that I had worked so hard to do without saving. And, well, the joke was on me. Luckily enough, I was able to make it to a save point shortly thereafter, and everything was fine. But, man, that's definitely something that got my heart racing. Great game. If you can find it and you have a GameCube, I highly recommend it. This one's a little obscure, but it had some traction. It has a faithful. Number 3, Castlevania 4 for the SNES. This game it really embodied everything that the SNES was capable of doing, and it did so very early on in the SNES's lifespan. Not to mention, it really made the system sell itself. This was a game that really helped sell the system because it had beautiful visuals. Whenever you consider the introduction screen alone, it definitely sells what the SNES was capable of doing. Now, this is, of course, way back then. But at the same time, the gameplay is phenomenal. They make a lot of upgrades to what was wrong with games such as the first or the third game for the NES. And, of course, it just was a game that you could instantly pick up and play. And it just feels very perfect. It feels very tight. It has, very fluid controls. And everything has a nice, fair balance of challenge and fairness to it, which is something that they've never really been able to reproduce since, and weren't able to do before then, because 1 and 3 were brutally hard, and the second one was just strange. This is a game that really is what Castlevania is all about, and they've tried to make games similar to this ever since, but the modern ones just don't have the same feel, obviously, because there's a lot of 3D and everything like that. This just feels like home. Number 2, this is the most recent we get onto this list, The Binding of Isaac, and now The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. These are 2 games that are available on Steam. They're also available for download on PS4 or PS3 or whatever the hell it is. All that other fancy gadgety shit. I have it on Steam. This is a game where you control Isaac, who is a child whose mother has been told by God that she needs to kill her son. Because that's what God wants, because God's a dick. And you navigate through various levels. You collect items. It's all random and procedurally generated. And you have to kill your own mother. And then kill her heart, or I'm giving away too much of that, but you then eventually have to kill yourself, and then kill a negative version of yourself, and it's a really twisted fucking game by Edmund McMillan, and it is the most addicting game that you will probably ever find. The gameplay will remind you of dungeon crawlers such as the original Legend of Zelda. The music is catchy, and really is able to reflect the mood a lot, especially with Rebirth. Rebirth has probably one of my most favorite themes in gaming right now, and that's the Cellar theme from Rebirth. It's just a phenomenal theme. It's something that I wish was restricted for a longer floor, that way I could listen to it longer. It's to the point where I have it queued up on YouTube, a 10-hour version of it. That way I can listen to it throughout my entire run, instead of, just listening to it for the 2 minutes that it's on. I'm that obsessed. This is a game that will easily suck up a lot of your time. There's tons of unlockables, tons of collectibles, tons of things for you to do, tons of challenges, and just tons of fun. I can't recommend this game enough. I can't recommend this game enough because some of you probably haven't heard of it, and you're all going to know number one. You're all going to know number one, at least one of the two of them. It's The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, or The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, in at number one. Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is arguably one of the most perfect games that I've ever played. The light world, dark world idea, the storyline, for the time frame, this just was, it was mind-blowing. It was boggling to me, all that they were able to pack into this game. All of the item collection, the challenge of the bosses, the challenge of the overall game, finding out where to go, finding all of the secrets, and finding all the heart pieces. Now you might say, well, you're talking about a lot of optional shit, Cover Killer, but at the same time, isn't that part of the fun? Before, everything was a completionist thing where you needed to have, 50 unlockable collectibles and 150, puzzle pieces, or 150, scrapbook pieces, photographs, whatever. Where, in Grand Theft Auto, you have to do like 10 trillion things to 100% the game. This is something where, optionally, you could collect all the heart pieces and have maximum health. You could collect all of the items in the game and have a full inventory and have a full arsenal against your foes. Then whenever we made it to Ocarina of Time, everything went to the third dimension. And man, was this a huge deal. The Legend of Zelda was always a game that was, either top-down or side-scroller. It was always very 2D, very linear. This is a game, finally, where everything was exceptionally expansive, and you could just do so many different things. The storyline, once again, expanded, and it would only expand even further from there. This was the game that, for me, it was the first game that I was ever so hyped up about that I needed to have a gold cartridge. And I don't have my gold cartridge anymore. God damn it. And it pisses me off, but that's what happens whenever you have asshole friends. But at any rate, this game is just a beautiful work of art. And of course, they've modified the games ever since, but these are the two that will always stick in my head just because of the gameplay, because of the memories attached to them, and not to mention just the fact that they play so fluidly. The controls are great, they're extremely responsive, the dungeons have a fair aspect of challenge, and really overall, there's a lot to do. There's a lot that you can actually accomplish. The music is exceptional. The overall visual design is breathtaking. There are no flaws with these games. I would secretly actually put, A Link to the Past above Ocarina of Time, but I'm a bit biased. I play that game at least once every year. Ocarina of Time, I'm lucky if I'm able to get to it. I don't think I've actually done a full playthrough of that game in, well, a couple of years. It's been a while. Well, there you have it. You guys wanted to know about my top 10 video games? I probably gave you like 15, but overall, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed it. I hate the fact that I don't have any gameplay for you to, kind of have you look at something other than me, but maybe one day. Later on.